Hi, I'm Bob the Hollow, at long last, here to talk about Bloodborne, my favorite Soulsborne game. I'm not that up to date with the current theories for this game, but, as always, I'll try my best not to rehash old theories and arguments. These are all my original thoughts, presented with the information required to actually make sense of them. I'll start by explaining my view on the Pthumerian Labyrinth, the Tomb of the Gods, as its ancient history lays the foundation for all later lore. There is much to be explored, so let's get started, shall we? When you're standing on a road, there's what lies ahead of you and what lies behind. Everything happens in succession, but if you could stand above ground, you'd see the road in its entirety, the whole path laid out in front of you. The labyrinth offers us the opportunity to see time in a similar fashion. The dungeons are a glimpse into the past, everything that's gone happening at once, right in front of our eyes. Each dungeon teleports you to a fixed point in time. This is evidenced by the fact that we get to fight Rom and Amygdala before they are ascended, we get to fight Ibritas before she's relocated, and we get to fight Yharnam where she still has Murgo in her womb. Depth 5 would be the center of the labyrinth, the level at which the Pthumerians would have built their capital. As you get closer to it, you move further into the past. This includes both depth and horizontal distances. The relation between depth and time is most clear in Loran. As the lower depth isn't yet ailing, the scourge had not yet taken its toll. This factor is also present in Ibrita's current location. Here, directly below ground level, we see a picture of the ruins as they would stand today, if not for the protection of the seals that keep them. Nothing but ruins. And here, we also bear witness to Rom's dead body, who once inhabited these halls but has since been ascended to the Moonside Lake. Horizontally, this can be implied by the hintertombs, since it is stated that, to this day, they continue with their excavation efforts, and the fact that it has a Pthumerian elder rather than a Pthumerian descendant. This implies that the Loran we visit is older than the hintertombs, but younger than the Pthumerian Labyrinth proper. Depth 4 of the Pthumerian Labyrinth requires a bastard of Loran for its ritual. This point in space marks the point in time when Loran would have defiled the labyrinth. This would be where humans and Pthumerians first met. Standing across the canyon, Loran would have been an outlying Pthumerian kingdom, growing under the shadow of the expanding Pthumerian Empire, connected to its homeland by ancient stone bridges that have been lost to time. The humans, in all probability, came from the outside just like we did, from the surface up above. But if the Pthumerians were guardians of slumbering great ones, then what great ones were they guarding? In Pthumeru Ihil, they would have been watching over Flora, the moon presence. This relation can be surmised by the presence of the many tombstones upon which the Hunter's Mark has been carved, and also by the Hunter's Mark present on the altar in front of which Queen Yharnam can be found, though that's only visible without its upper part. These tombstones are different from all those that can be found in Yharnam, while being the same tombstones that are located in the Hunter's Dream and that are used to access the labyrinth dungeons. They also seem too old to have been made by us. No, these are relics from an age long gone. The Hunter's Mark on these tombstones differ from each other and seem to denote a progression from a very rustic, almost tribal-like style to a more stylized, modern-looking one. It's a moving picture denoting the evolution of the Pthumerian culture and its long-time relation with the moon presence. Loran, on the other hand, would eventually have fallen to Oedon's influence, as evidenced by the scourge of the beast that spreads through its halls, now bursting with human invaders. In this level we can also find Amygdala, on the Pthumerian side, who would have been ascended by Oedon since she is currently stationed at the frontier of Oedon's domain, still holding Loran's chalice, much like Ron would later be ascended by Kos. These hunter tombstones, I believe, imply that the Pthumerians had hunters of their own. Though it's unclear whether they had a dream-based hub or not, they would have had a prey to hunt, and I believe these were the beasts that poured in from Loran. The period of time during which we visit the labyrinth has already seen the fall of both Pthumeru and Loran. There's nothing but beasts and watchers, Pthumerian descendants and their elders left. Each dungeon leads to another dungeon that is farther away, either downwards or sideways, and the Pthumeru chalice would have been found close to ground level, as that would be the depth preceding depth 1. This allows its acquisition without the need for rituals, just simple excavation. From there, progression is relatively straightforward, with just a few exceptions. The first notable exception is defiled Pthumeru, which requires a bastard of Loran that must be retrieved from inside the tragic land lost to the sands. Loran itself constitutes another exception, as its chalice must be retrieved from Amidala, in the Nightmare Frontier. Pthumeru Ihil requires a living string. At this point, they would already have reached the Nightmare of Mensis, where they found the brain and acquired the necessary material. It is wrongly assumed that they'd have to have killed the brain in order to get the string, which would create an unsolvable conundrum. But we loot things from dead corpses that wouldn't have been inside them all the time, like armor sets, for instance. The same logic could be applied to the string and the brain. The rotten Great One was in possession of the string and Mensis would have stolen it from her. Is requires you to retrieve its chalice directly from Ebritas herself, which would, in itself, create another conundrum. It isn't specified where they could have originally gotten the chalice, and it could be argued that they got it through regular means, then Ebritas brought it with her once she relocated to the surface. But considering that, like I said, it is never specified where the chalice could have been originally retrieved from, then it's more likely that the other pieces of evidence provided by the game are lining up to provide an alternative answer. The group that would later become the Choir went to great lengths to create the small celestial emissaries, and everything points to an effort of using them to contact the Great Ones. Also, considering that the Choir would have monopoly over communion with Ebritas, then the human-turned emissaries would have been the key to accessing the East Dungeon, granting an audience with the emissary to the left-behind Great One. Root chalice that breaks multiple labyrinth seals. Root chalices, used in rituals to break old labyrinth seals, are said to change the labyrinth's form each time. Regarding root chalices, I just would like to state that I don't believe they actually change the form of the labyrinth. I think they break the seals of labyrinths of different words on each time they are used. I first got this impression because they don't just change the form of the labyrinth, they change everything inside them. Inside root chalice dungeons, enemy, boss and item placement all can sometimes make very little sense, but if they are in different words, then who's to say what makes sense or not inside that particular universe? Also, hum, translated as root, is a prefix that means pun, which lends credence to this idea. Okay, have you ever heard the theory that the messengers can breach the water barrier separating words? That would be why they are always inside water, and that would be how they are able to transport you to the Dreamland. Well, the chalice for sinister dungeons can only be obtained via the Beth messengers. The sinister dungeons would be under the influence of other words, for lack of a better term, and that's why they beseech the bell-ringing women, who ring their bells to summon invaders that are also from other words. And I think these ladies appear to be mad on the account of constantly ringing their bells, using all their insight in the process. The hintertombs seem to be an amalgamation of all the remnants of the labyrinth. The lack of beasts, while still presenting beast bosses, along with the Pthumerian Elder, alludes to the final stages of the conflict between these forces, with the beasts being all but vanished at this point. It also holds similarities with the world above ground that aren't related to the Scourge of the Beast. Eye collectors from Hemwick Chernal Lane, snakes from the Forbidden Woods, man-eaten boars, brain suckers, and even left behind madmen who have contemplated truths beyond their ken. It seems to be the least fleshed out dungeon. At first glance, it even seems like it was hastily thrown together using reused assets. But I think there's a reason for that, and I'll get into it on a later date. As a final note, the blood-starved beast is actually called the bloodthirsty beast in Japanese. Adeline says fear the thirst for blood, and the blood-starved beast would have been a blood scent, or its Loran equivalent when found inside the dungeons, that would have been drained of blood to the point of becoming a beast that thirsts for it. This would be the reason why, to this date, blood scents can't provide too much blood. Time in the labyrinth stands still, but right now, at this moment, if you're standing on a road, Loran lies both ahead and behind of you. It is a mirror to both the past and the future of Yharnam's enterprise. It's often dismissed as a simple reference to the Scourge of the Beast, a grim reminder of the importance of the hunt. But, in true Souls fashion, the most unassuming corners hide the most interesting lore. And to begin unraveling the mysteries of this land, we'll start by talking about one particularly unassuming item, the red jelly. The red jelly would be the remains of a child meant to be born from the wedlock to a great one. A hint to this would be the fact that we need the red jelly to perform Ihil's ritual, the depth where Yharnam is located, still with her own child inside her womb. This child's appearance would bear a remarkable resemblance to the child of blood mentioned in Kanehurst-related texts. The Japanese texts refer to this child of blood as Chino Akago, Akago being a more formal version of Akachan. The former, being restricted to haikus and other literary forms, is used in Bloodborne to give it the aesthetics of a past age. Note also that both words are formed using the kanji Aka for red. There is no hidden meaning behind this kanji within these words, but, considering the context, I think it's quite illustrative. And it's also worth remembering that the Bergenworth note mentioning the Red Moon makes reference to a child that fits the description of the Child of Blood, without calling it that, making the assumption that the red jelly could, in fact, be a Child of Blood without specifically stating it that much more viable. Now, the presence of red jellies in Lower Loran would imply that on that level, just like in Pthumeru Ihil, such babies were supposed to have been born, but, as we all know, every great one loses its child. The red jelly is also associated with the bastard of Loran, another dead infant used as a ritual material. Bastard, in English, carries the connotation of being born out of wedlock. The Japanese word used for bastard of Loran adds the nuance of usually being used for nobles. Loran would have been the noble, the queen, and this was her bastard child. Being so different from the red jelly, it could signify that the Queen of Loran, also called Loran after Pthumerian customs, was supposed to be betrothed to the moon presence, but was defiled, and had a different kind of child, a child of a different great one. And while I think Loran surrendered herself willingly to Oedon, becoming defiled in the eyes of the moon presence, I think Queen Yharnam was forcibly defiled while carrying Flora's child, as she can be found praying to Flora's altar, and thanks you for liberating Murgo, but at the same time, her blood attacks cause poison buildup, and her third umbilical cord would have led Murgo to Oedon's domain, who's searching for a surrogate child. Besides bastard, Otoshigo also has the meaning of an unwelcome consequence. For example, Hithan wa Sensou no Otoshigo data would mean that misery is a byproduct of war. That would mean that the curse for which the bastard is a harbinger was caused by Loran, by her defilement. The curse itself would have created the nightmare frontier alongside Oedon's domain, just like Kosse's curse created the hunter's nightmare alongside its domain, to avenge another defilement, many years in the future. As a side note, Botoku, meaning defilement, also has the meaning of blasphemy and sacrilege, which supports the theory above. But I don't think the curse was meant to punish the human defilers, as humans are Oedon's inadvertent worshippers. There are no humans in the frontier except for present-day hunters, and the only beasts we can find are Loran silver beasts. These beasts differ greatly from the beasts stemming from humans. Long, retractable claws, twisted faces, flammable saliva, and a coating of silver fur. I think they are the result of crossbreeding between species, being mostly Pthumerian, but just human enough to fall prey to the beast's embrace. They even carry torches, as if they had been hunting beasts prior to their transformation. The giant lost children, while having very different bodies, still boast the same pale colors, and they aren't really lost, they are abandoned. So I think they may have been the next generation of this heretic crossbreeding, and, unable to hide the truth any longer, they were simply discarded. The frontier is Oedon's vision of a hunter's nightmare, created in an age gone by to entrap the Pthumerian hunters that hunted his infants and brides. And he wouldn't have stopped there. There are statues of face-covered women crying with infants at their feet, and I think the messengers are the Pthumerian infants of yore. The game itself calls them babes. Deformed by the nightmare, trapped by a curse that I believe was inspired by Western religion, as the Christian God would have taken the lives of all the firstborn of Egypt. An eye for an eye. Damn, Oedon is one mean old school motherfucker. Well, that's it for the Pthumerian Labyrinth. Exploring the labyrinth's lore has a different feel to it. It almost feels like an actual excavation report with more data than narrative. I, for one, find it really interesting, and I hope you've enjoyed this first foray into Bloodborne. If you have any questions or if you'd like to share your opinions, leave a comment. I try to reply to all of them, and I really enjoy the conversations that sometimes they create. If you like my content and haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so. And if you'd like to help this channel grow, feel free to check out my Patreon. Every little bit of help goes a long way. Thank you all for watching. Thanks JSF for mentioning Yharnam's altar, which helps complement my theory, and thanks to the Tomb Prospectors subreddit for providing me with the glyph. Thank you Vinny for your continuous support. I finally got an actual microphone, and I hope that the audio quality is at least a little bit better now. That was all you, man. And thank you Mirans for incepting a very important idea in my head by commenting that messengers look like dead babies. You're beautiful, never change. Okay, until next time, see ya.